Welcome to the FanBoi podcast. I'm your host, Caleb, FanBoi, and welcome to season 2, episode 5. This is the second official podcast that will be available on video format on YouTube as well as Instagram. If you're watching this live, thank you everybody for joining me live today. Thank you everybody for watching from YouTube. Thank you everybody who's listening from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Amazon, wherever else you listen to your podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. This is season 2, episode 5, and today I'm going to be going over my thoughts on this new rumored Donda Kanye West album release, what I think it's going to sound like, is it going to drop, um, as well as a quick review on the new Suicide Boys sort of single slash EP that they just dropped. So yeah, let's hop into it. Let's go into the Donda section of today's podcast. So starting off, what do I expect? Do I expect the album to sound like the singles? Kanye's recently released singles like "Na Na Na" or his features like on the Playboy Cardi album. Do I think it's gonna sound like Jesus is King or the singles? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's gonna sound like the recent singles at all. I actually hope it doesn't sound like the recent singles at all because the singles were terrible. No. I was even the baby and Two Chains feature is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. No, that wasn't bad. But Kanye on there, uh, not worth listening. But if you remember back in I think 2019 ish, he released a couple singles like Ecstasy and I Love It, which were kind of like joke songs, like Lift Yourself. And I feel like this is kind of his attempt at getting a hit. But Kanye isn't really a hit maker anymore, at least for now, because he's like experimented through so many other genres and pushed other boundaries that he's came far away from a mainstream sort of appeal, I think. And I think that whenever he tries to make a hit like No 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 or even Ecstasy or I Love It, it flops. And it might just be joke albums kind of teasing up to like the main release. And that's why I don't think that this new Dawn album will sound like the singles at all. I don't think it will sound like the singles. And judging by this track list, there's a leaked track list. This is a leaked track list, guys. I don't think this is official. I'm not saying this is real or anything, but there's a leaked track list supposedly, and one of the songs is Hurricane. And if you remember, he dropped a Hurricane slash 80 Degrees back in 2019 as kind of a teaser for the Yandi album. And Yandi never dropped, obviously, and he dropped Jesus is King instead. If he drops this Hurricane single, supposedly with other tracks on this album that sound like Hurricane, I think we're in for a pretty good sound because the Yandi, like the leaked Yandi sound was actually really good. It was uh, trappy, like mainstream enough to be accessible, but it also had a very ambient vibes in the background, like like these weird flutes, sci-fi, like alien vibes, and I think that if Hurricane is on the album, that we could actually see a return to Yandi. We could see a return to Yandi, and I think that would be fantastic. Uh, will it still be gospel? I think that it's not going to be necessarily a gospel project. I think he's going to try to, still stay clean like he's been doing in his singles. He's been staying super clean, hasn't had any explicit lyrics in a while, and I think he's going to stick with that. Uh, Judging by the track list, there's also mentions of God in here, so I don't think he's going to be having explicit lyrics at all. But I don't think it's going to be as gospel as Jesus is King was, mostly based on fan criticism. I think he knows now that but Kanye at the same time always changes with every project. So I honestly expect it to not be straight up gospel. I think it might be kind of a return to the life of Pablo in a way, where uh it was catchy trap songs with kind of like a gospel sample, but I think it's gonna be clean. It's gonna be like a clean Life of Pablo. And as far as sound goes, I think we may also see a Life of Pablo thing here, where I think the Life of Pablo sound production wise sounded like a collection of everything that Kanye has done up until that point. We might see a new direction, or we might just see a collection of everything he's done since, because he's experimented a lot and he's put out a lot of music since. So we could just see a return to that kind of a collaboration of everything, like Tyler the Creator's recent Call Me If You Get Lost. That was kind of a collection of everything he's done since, like Flower Boy. And yeah, do as far as sound and predictions go, that's Jesus King. Let me move on to the next section, which actually talks about album covers. All right. Along with a track list, there's also leaked album cover, a leaked album cover. And this is it. This is what the album cover looks like. Let me guys know what you think of this cover. I've been interacting with people online saying the cover was trash, it's horrible. I don't think it's a trash picture. I think it's a nice picture. Good texture. I like the texture on it. But it's not something that you typically see from an album cover. It is this isn't what you'd expect from an album cover, especially when I think last year this other supposed Donda album cover leaked, and I think this one looks incredible. This one looks really cool. For those of you who are just listening to this podcast and can't see what the album cover looks like, there's three children kind of floating around in space, and it's almost like a thermal kind of painting, and you can tell it's painted, maybe spray paint textures, again super textured, and I like it. And then he changed it to this very simplistic picture of like a red figure, almost like standing in the wind with a gray background, and it looks very abstract. It looks something that you'd see in a hipster coffee shop, not something that you'd technically see in like an album cover. But I don't think it's bad. I think it's definitely weird. But I mean, knowing Kanye, this might not even happen. And this actually reminds me of something. This reminds me of the Ye release, when Kanye leaked the supposed cover for Ye, which was originally called Love Everyone. The cover has a picture of a doctor who's the doctor who actually screwed up Kanye's mom's surgery and ended up killing her. And the album is called Love Everyone. And it's a very beautiful aesthetic. Almost reminds me of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy in the way that it's formatted. And I think it's a nice cover, but he completely changed everything. He actually renamed the album to Ye, and he remade the album cover to this piece of work right here. This album cover is completely terrible, lacks creativity. This album cover fucking sucks. But I mean, he's doing the same thing again here, guys. Maybe he'll change it. We actually have no idea. This is all just speculation. And I just want to mention one more thing that this album cover reminds me, or the new changed Donda album cover reminds me of the Na 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 single in a way. And for those of you watching, I'm pulling up a side by side here for you so you can see it. Again, very similar. It's like a figure kind of like sticking their head up into the wind, almost looking up into the sky, looking up at God, which tells me that it will be somewhat of a gospel album. Again, I'm probably taking this way too far. I'm completely overthinking this, but that's basically my Donda rant. Sweet. Now let's head into like the next section of the podcast here. We got a short, I'd consider it an EP review. We got a short EP review of the new Suicide Boys, Materialism as a Means to an End. This is a new single that was released with two other previously released singles. They kind of dropped it as an EP. I think it's super, super solid. Almost almost reminiscent of their older work, their 2015 kind of Kill Yourself series, kind of same sound, same aesthetic. I love the single Materialism as Means to an End. It's super flat, super honestly, the beats are really flashy for Suicide Boys, but it's really good. It's something new. But and again, rapping style is reminiscent of the old Suicide Boys, and it's a really good collaboration of both eras here. We also got the single New Profile Pic, which is again fucking banger, reminds me of the older stuff, and Avalon, which for me was somewhat mid, kind of underwhelming. It felt very filler to me. Didn't care for it much, but overall, I think this album was super solid. Or sorry, not this album, EP. This EP was super solid, and I'm feeling like a 7 to a like 8 out of 10. So 7.5 on this Materialism as Means to an End by Suicide Boys. And that concludes today's podcast, actually. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, everybody, for listening. You can follow the FanBoi Instagram page at fanboi_IG, where I post daily hip hop related content. And you can also subscribe to this channel on YouTube so you can watch the podcasts, and you can actually follow on Spotify as well. So if you're not at home, you're riding the bus or you're doing homework or something, you can plug in your earphones and you can listen to the FanBoi podcast on Spotify. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. I'm your host, FanBoi, and I'm signing out.